microphone or something to capture comments that people make, so that when people are watching online, they can't hear your voices. And or the same thing with my other Bible study. So he says he's going to look for something, something that I could have facing this way, and that would take in and feed it through to the recorded piece. Yeah.
Because you guys would be talking, but you're asking a question, but I didn't hear the question.
Right. So I think that would be really helpful. But anyway, we'll see if he can figure out a way. Okay, so we're in Genesis 18. I was noticing as we started this whole thing from Genesis that there have been a lot of key things that I feel like I want to remember. There are things I didn't really remember or focus on too much in the past, and I thought, what are the important things as we're going through? And I want to encourage you, Carolyn Cochran, she has a little spiral notebook that she writes in, but feel free to write things down, because when you write down those things, or I love to make notes in my Bible, make little arrows or underlines or stuff. Anything that in your brain will sink that in. It makes it more concrete in your brain so that you can remember the information. So one of the things I put in here is that Genesis is an oral tradition. We talked about how it began as an oral tradition, and that when God created the heavens, sun, moon, etc., he created time. That to me, that was oh yeah, that's right. He's creating time. And then the idea that God lives in an eternal present, being eternal, what meaning does time have to God?
Right.
So that just really blows my mind, that he lives in the eternal present. It's always now for him. So anyway, I want to encourage you to do the same thing, to think about making notes or underlining things, anything that will help burn that into your mind for remembering. Once I get a couple pages here, I'll print them off and let you share them with you if you would like to share those kind of notes. But we're going to look at a story that is very well known, but I think that you're going to see some new stuff. Whenever I take a screenshot of a piece and then put it up here, for some reason it's a little bit blurry. It's blurry to me too. The original wasn't blurry, but somehow in saving it, it's a little bit blurry, so I'm sorry. Don't think it's your eyes. It's just a little bit blurry. But I think you can get the gist of it. Remember last week we talked about how all the peoples descended from Noah's 3 sons, right? And we talked about, well, who's where in connection to those 3 sons? So the thing that, if you look here, you can see Ham is in that southern region. Can you see that goes over Egypt and then all the way up through Canaan? In fact, Ham's son is named Canaan. So look at the Ham area. Ham is the boy who we don't know what he did. He saw his father naked, or something more, because we have that phrase in the scripture that says what his youngest son had done to him. We don't know what that is or how that figures to seeing him naked. So Ham is that son. Now, isn't that interesting? So then look, Shem, the area was Shem. And then up at the top, you see Japheth. That's where those people groups were from. So it's interesting that Ham is from the Egypt area, because when Abraham went down to Egypt, remember he saw all the pyramids and this really refined. He also may have learned that Egyptians believe in everlasting life. And Egyptians practiced circumcision earlier. So those things were things that he would have seen in the Egyptian area. I don't know if he knew about it before or not. But as a patriarch and a sheep herder or whatever, it might have been news to him. Those kinds of ideas. We don't know. Here, Abraham's family started out in Ur, that yellow part, in the Ur of Chaldees, and they traveled to Haran, that's up at the north part. Then God called Abram and told him to travel to Canaan, that's the red portion. Abram built altars to God at Shechem and Bethel. During a famine, Abram returned to Egypt, journeyed to Egypt, and then he returned from Egypt and settled in the southern part of Canaan. So that's where he's at.
So, like that previous map that you were showing us with the three sons, can help us understand why things are the way they are today with the Arabs and the, all the different countries. They think,
Different tribes.
yeah, but their thinking actually stems from back then.
Potentially, you could say that. A people group takes on a certain culture or a certain way of doing things, a certain way of thinking about things, and so they could be very different in their thinking in the different areas. It would be like when I go to Somerton School District, and I'm working there in the office with a lot of native Mexican people who speak English and are very good at what they're doing. They're very, knowledgeable people. But it's a whole different culture than when I was in Welton, working with very few Hispanics in that office setting. What they do culturally, what they think is polite or not polite, all of that is different. So in the Somerton, in the Mexican culture, no one would dare say anything opposite or different to what I would propose. I was the superintendent, that's true, I was their boss. But when I was in Welton, I was the superintendent, I was the boss, and nobody minded telling me if they didn't like what I said. Right? It's a different culture. In Somerton, I was the tall one. In Welton, I'm the short one, right? So it's just different cultures have different ways of viewing things, viewing life, viewing work, viewing family. It's just different. So, okay. So this is the sea. Okay, so he returned and he settled there in Canaan. Now when we look at Canaan, the white arrow on the bottom is pointing to the 5 cities. So Abram and his nephew Lot had a lot of flocks and herds, and there wasn't enough pasture for them to stay together. Remember how many fighting men Abram had available? How many? 318. 318 fighting men he had available. How does what does that say about how many people are with him? That's a big mass of people that are working together and a part of his family, so to speak. So what about Lot? How many people were in Lot's family? Somebody say 4.
I forget a
I was
lot.
gonna say it was small.
Somebody say
4.
10. Nobody says 10? I actually read this week about the proof of 10. Wait till you see. So Lot chose the fertile valley of the Jordan and went to live near Sodom, the southern end of the Dead Sea. He wasn't actually in Sodom when he first moved, he was just near Sodom. Note the location of Hebron. Do you see where Hebron is there, where the white arrow is pointing to? Hebron was where Abraham was at. So down at the bottom white arrow, you can see that's where Lot moved to Sodom. And there by Hebron is where Abraham is at. Keep trying to say it right. So when they talk about Mamre, the area that he went to was Mamre. That's where Mamre is. It's like 5 miles from Hebron. So you could say he was in Hebron if he wanted to, because Mamre is very close to it. When Sarah died, Abraham bought the cave of Machpelah from Ephron the Hittite for a burying place. When Abraham himself died, he too was buried there. There's now a great memorial building over the cave. The cave still exists, but no one is allowed to go inside it. I Googled it. You can Google it if you want to, but none of the pictures were very good. It just looked like a tourist trap is what it looked like from the outside. But it's supposedly the cave where his body is at and his family. I don't know. So let's review. Returning from Egypt with great wealth, Abram also brought with him the beautiful and exotic Hagar, servant girl of Sarai and concubine to Abram. Life became very complicated in the household tent, although God had made a covenant with Abram in Genesis 12 that involved both property and progeny meaning children. Land stretching from the Euphrates River to Egypt, and more descendants than the stars in the sky or the sand on the seashore. The promised people had not yet materialized, and Abram was now 90 years old and Sarai 80 years old. I can feel for Abram's attitude. Abram had, however, fathered Ishmael by Hagar, and that kind of complicated the covenant, not to mention Abram's domestic life. That was really complicated. Tensions rose, jealousy simmered, resentment boiled. In the ancient world, hospitality, the Greek name for that is xena, is a sacred obligation which consists of two basic rules: respect from host to guest and respect from guest to host. So in respect from host to guest, the host must provide the guest with shelter, protection, food, drink, a bath, and a gift when he leaves. It is not polite to ask the guest questions, including the identity, until after he has eaten his meal. Thus, one cannot discriminate by nationality, social status, or occupation. From the other side, respect from guest to host, the guest must be courteous to the host and not be burdened. The guest should also provide a gift to the host when he leaves. Is that like our culture? Not hardly at all. Even today, go ahead.
I said, but a little bit. I mean, when you go to someone's home, at least back in my age group, you always took a gift.
Oh.
It was, a bunch of flowers.
Yeah, I've seen
just
people do
something.
that, and I've never done that. I've seen people do that, like that's expected, and I've always go, oh, that's kind of weird. Why do they do that?
Yeah, now you know.
Yeah.
Europeans do it pretty
Yeah.
much all the time.
Mhm.
Southern
You don't know about
people,
the
they
bath.
send you home with a plate things, but when you bring the plate back, it's supposed to have something on it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah. It's funny because you can, without meaning to offend people, because you don't know what their rules are.
That's the same thing from, one part of the United States to the other, I grew up on the East Coast, and then I got to the state of Washington in my adult life, and it's like, they don't do that here?
Yeah. So, and it's easy to be offended and consider someone as being inconsiderate or rude because they didn't follow your rules. The problem is they don't have the same rules, so they don't know the same thing that we know. So what would be our response? What should be our response
To what?
to someone who inadvertently offends us because they don't do things the way we consider to be polite?
You either just let it slide, or there's a nice, my granny says you can say anything if you say it nicely. So you,
Like the Texas girls.
you say, well, honey, the way we do it around here is, and you can, that's what she
Bless
would
your
have done.
heart.
My grandma Pearl used to say that the more grace you show to people, the more grace God shows to you. So that's always been my feeling, that if someone offends me because I don't like whatever, I give them grace, and I know that God's giving me grace. But yeah, somehow you got to get past it, right? Otherwise otherwise you can't pull the unlovelies to Christ. The ones that are awkward or difficult for you. We're trying to pull them to Christ if we can.
And don't be ugly.
Don't be ugly.
You're doing pretty good, you put up with me.
Yeah, I only have to have only in short spouts. So in Hebrews,
on the other hand.
in Hebrews 13:1 it says, "Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect hospitality, for through it some have unknowingly entertained angels." Why, by golly, that's about what's going to happen next, right? Which alludes to the story we are about to read. Abraham, offering Ziva, shared a meal and an entertaining 3 men who turn out to be 2 angels and God. In Genesis 18, the story that sets up the Sodom and Gomorrah episode. Genesis 18, verse 1. You ready? We'll do 2 words. The Lord. Stop. It's so frustrating. I don't know why our scripture doesn't interpret the word. Why do they have to make it Lord everywhere? Because you don't know which Lord it means.
Uh-huh.
So this Lord is Jehovah. What I ended up doing was going into my literal word app and actually looking for the actual word to know which Lord is this. Because we're going to have God and two angels. But Lot doesn't know that it's God and two angels. They are just people who stop to visit, and he's providing that zina, that hospitality that was expected. And so as the conversation goes on, it begins to be revealed that one of them is God. So it says the Lord, Jehovah, that's God's name. So in verse 1, it's telling us that Jehovah was there. We don't know, Abraham doesn't know that yet, but we know because the scripture tells us the Lord, Jehovah, appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord. By the way,
Which one is that?
that one is the word Lord that's for like a boss or a master. It should be in lowercase. Is it lowercase L?
Mine's not.
They try to say that Jehovah is with a capital L, Yahweh is all capital letters, and Lord, that means boss or master, is small letters. Like that's going to help you, right? Drives me crazy. It says, he said, if I found favor in your eyes, master, Lord, boss, do not pass your servant by. Little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat so you can be refreshed and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant. Very well, they answered, do as you say. So God himself appears to Abraham. And at first, Abraham thinks that they're just 3 guys who are traveling. And Abraham is focused on providing zina or hospitality, and these guys are a little odd. So he's kind of like watching, what? This is a little odd, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a picture, a painting that was done by this guy, James Trissett or whatever. But maybe it looks something like this, where Abraham's in his tent, he's laying in his tent, and he looks up and he sees these 3 guys coming up, one of which is God, which he doesn't know. And where was he at? In Hebron, near
By the big tree at the end of
the Oak of Mamre. There it is, right there. Doesn't it look beautiful? It appears to be dead, but there are little sprouts that come out on it. And so, does it have still some life in it? I don't know. So, it's a 5,000-year-old tree, though, if it was there at that time. So, there you go. You can go look at it sometime if you want to. Oak of Mamre. Genesis chapter 18, verse 6. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said, get 3 seahs of the finest flour and knead it and bake some bread. How long does it take to bake bread?
A long
In
time.
those days,
So what the commentary said is this was the bread that was almost like a puffy tortilla,
Mhm.
kind of a flat bread.
Mhm.
Of course, I would think, because there's no way you're going to get a loaf to rise in this time. But basically, they make up a yeast dough, put it out, and it rises a little bit, and they cook it. So it's kind of like a fat tortilla.
And bread.
Yeah, or a pita bread, something like that.
and it's delicious.
I don't know if there's any bread that I don't find delicious.
There's truth in that statement.
Yeah. So then it says of fine flour, knead it and bake some bread. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice, tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. So he's not even eating with them. Where is your wife Sarah? They asked him. There in the tent, he said. Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's Abraham thinking right there?
How do they know
Both
my
of them
wife
were
is
in there.
Sarah?
And how do they know the name of my wife? Sarah, where you been going? Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son.
Got chance.
Verse 10 is quoted in Romans 9:9, and it relates it to Abraham's spiritual offspring, us. Look what it says there. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son. In Romans 9:7-8, it says that we are Abraham's spiritual offspring. That's weird, huh? Verse 10b, now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. Now, did the Bible have to say she was very old? I mean, come on.
What she was.
Why rub it in? So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I'm worn out and my Lord, again, that's the word master, is old, will I now have this pleasure? Then the Lord, that's Jehovah, said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? What do you think is happening in the mind of Abraham? This is getting really spooky, right? Is anything too hard for the Lord? That's Jehovah.
Nope.
I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid. So she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. This is a very awkward situation. I don't know if I would believe that if somebody said it. Very awkward. But what do you think, Lot, what do you think Abraham is thinking about these three guys? You think he's starting to get a feeling that this one guy's different than the other two?
Something's different.
Yeah. Of course, what he said is going to happen has not happened yet, right? So maybe he's just a weird guy, right? Did he say anything that would have been something that only God would know that actually has happened? Look at verse 13. Why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old?
Well, he knew her name and he knew he didn't have any children.
So that's kind of spooky right there, right? That he was
Sarah's
able
in
to
the tent.
repeat.
She didn't laugh directly at
Right.
one of them.
Sarah was in the other tent, and God told him what Sarah said, right? So there's the little, who is this guy? But if I was there, I'd be going, oh, but he probably heard, or, it's kind of a mystery thing. Verse 16, when the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? So God is thinking to himself, should I let him know what I'm going to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him, for I've chosen him so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. So God is thinking, he's thinking, should I tell Abraham what I'm going to do? I've chosen him to be the father of a great nation. Perhaps understanding what I'm going to do will help him to learn to lead and not accept this kind of outrageous behavior. Maybe this is a lesson that he needs to see.
But the fact that God had the words written.
How did the words get written?
That's what I was gonna ask.
That God breathed through Moses, because Moses actually wrote them.
Was it in the tent of meeting where he dictated all the stuff that he was supposed to write down
The
then?
first 5 books.
Okay.
We had the oral tradition that carried through some of the historical stories and all that they had been repeating. But God, the scripture says that God in the tent of meeting, not in the tent of meeting, in Moses' tent. I don't know if it was the tent of, that's why they called it the tent of meeting.
There was a special tent out there, and Moses would come out and his face would be glowing, so he put a
And Joshua stood out by the door,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the people
yeah.
could hear God talking to Moses. Yeah. So that's when the first 5 books were written. That
Guess
included
what
the
they had
history
in
and the
the tent
law.
of meeting where Jesus was?
What?
A guitar.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Verse, let's see. Okay, so look what God is thinking to himself. And what's he trying to debate within himself?
Is it better for Abram to know or not know?
If I let him know, then maybe he'll understand the problem with sin, right? Shall I tell Abram what I'm about to do? He's wondering if this is something that he should help him to understand, not to accept sinful behavior. This might be a good lesson for Abraham.
And it's a lesson for us today, isn't it? The fact that we are reading the fact that God was thinking and what he was thinking.
Which means that God might be thinking about Eve and thinking, should I take away this hardship that's about to happen or let it happen because it's something Eve needs to learn, right? It's interesting to think that God is thinking about what would be best for us to learn and grow.
There's another little thought in there too. Since they're around Sodom, God may be thinking about what he's gonna do to Sodom and Gomorrah, and is that what he's thinking?
Yeah,
Should I tell this dude what I'm gonna do to Sodom and Gomorrah?
that's exactly it. And he's thinking because this is something that Abraham needs to learn or see or understand. Because he's making Abraham a great nation. He's going to be the father of many nations, and he wants him to be a good leader. So should I reveal to him what I'm going to do so that he learns the lessons he needs to be a good leader? That's what God is saying right here.
And also because his nephew was there.
Yeah, we're going to see more about the nephew very soon. Verse 20, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. So the two guys go on and God stays. So Lot and his family are in Sodom. So this would be very hard for Abraham. How many family members does Lot have in Sodom?
10.
10?
He said.
You say 10?
I thought just him and his family.
Well, who are his family?
Well, he had 2 daughters.
2 daughters, wife, and Lot.
Yeah.
All my life I was told it's 4. And I read in the NIV commentary that it's possible it was 10, and that's why he stopped at 10. I'll show you the 10,
Okay.
okay? You can see if you think of, to me it's like a little, Okay, Genesis 18 verse 23. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? So Abraham knows this is God, and he's willing to step forward face to face with God and ask him this question. That took quite a bit of guts. Abraham knows he's speaking to a divine being. The proper motion would have been to step back, not step forward, but he steps forward. Robert Alter, an old commentary, says that the Hebrew verb is often used for someone about to deliver a legal plea. Like if you were going before a judge and you were going to plead your case, that stepping forward to plead your case would be the same word that was used here with Abraham addressing God. What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, although I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found? He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry. I would be angry by this time. But let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered. For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Okay, are you ready? It sounds like he's dickering with a vendor, right?
It sounds like an 8-year-old dealing.
So NIV counts Lot, his wife, and possibly 2 sons, which are recorded in chapter 19:12. Write that down in case you want to look up later. 19:12. We'll look at it in a little bit. 2 married daughters and their husbands in chapter 9, verse 14, and 2 unmarried daughters. I don't know if they're right, but it's interesting. The 2 angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. So what does this tell us about Lot when he's sitting in the gateway of the city? We've seen that with other patriarchs. What does it mean if you're sitting in the gateway of the city?
You're an elder.
They're somebody.
They're important.
Yeah.
You're important, you're a businessman, you're an important leader, it's where cases were pled, that's the place. So when he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. Now I wonder why he did that. What about them made him think that they were important? He said, my lords, which is Adonai, it means boss, master. He said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Okay, so we know that he's in an important position. This is not the gate, the entrance to the city of Sodom, because that was, there's nothing left of Sodom and Gomorrah. But this is the entrance of the gateway to Dan, another city. This is what that would look like, the entrance. And notice that the entrance goes up and that it goes left and then right. They did that for safety, so that if an army should attack or people come in, they have a way to get to them before they actually can come just straight in. So that's a common thing to prevent invaders from being successful. And also it was up so that people could stand like up on that where the rocks are, could stand from up there, and they would pour hot oil on them or shoot them with arrows or whatever, throw rocks on them. Like put them at a disadvantage if they were coming up that ramp to go into the city. Just in case you need to build a ramp. And then this is the kind of place like a city magistrate or a businessman might sit at, and as people are entering the city, they would do business with them or that kind of thing. So God had already said that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is grave. So something really bad is about to happen in Sodom. Verse 4. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we can have sex with them." Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, "No, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." Yeah, well, what about your daughters? Are they under the protection of your roof?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Maybe he wanted, husbands for them.
He already had them. They had people. I don't know if they were the other ones. So yeah.
Talk about different cultures.
Yeah. This offering his daughters as replacement is just, he's basically following Shiva, which is that you protect your guests at all cost. He's following that mentality that whatever you have to do to protect your guests, that's the practice of Shiva. But I don't know. I have a hard time even. So in this case, Lot chose to do what was clearly immoral. His overall godliness need not to be called into question by this one horrible lapse. 2 Peter says, "And if he rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless." That's 2 Peter 2, verse 7. We say it again. And if he rescued Lot, a righteous man who was distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless. I guess there's forgiveness for anyone, but I'd slap him first before I forgave him.
That was 2 Peter 2:7.
2:9, I think. 2:7. 2 Peter 2:7.
Thank you.
Verse 9, get out of our way, they replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so they could not find the door. I wonder what it feels like to be yanked by an angel back into the house. The two men said to Lot, do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters.
The ones he was gonna give to the, yeah,
I think, but honestly, the way NIV describes it, it sounds like these could be daughters that are arranged to be married, and the two daughters that he has that are his own are not the ones that have spouses. I think that's how they get to 10. So I'm a little confused by it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. Now, I don't think it matters whether there was 10 or 4. There are 4 who escaped. Lot, his wife, and 2 of the daughters escaped.
Your two daughters who are here.
Right, see? And so the thing to me, though, is it is nice to have an understanding of where the 10 comes from, because I could never figure out why Abraham stopped at 10. And this other thing that NIV suggests, where they count the sons-in-laws and then the daughters that would have been associated with them, then it starts to make more sense that you get to 10. I don't know.
But still, when you're left with these two daughters,
Uh-huh.
his son-in-law.
Right. Right.
Might be when he got to 10, he was thinking, you know, I think I might have pushed this stuff out as far as it could go.
Some people say that. Others say also that if you'll go to 10, then you're at, that means anyone. So I don't know. But I thought it was interesting when the NIV commentary comments. You look on your, if you have NIV Bible with study notes at the bottom, it should be in there. I had it on the electronic one, but it should be in there if you want to see how they reason it out. Okay, Genesis 19, verse 16. When he hesitated, why did he hesitate? What is he hesitating about? Would you hesitate?
I'd be halfway up the hill.
Why is he hesitating?
because he's leaving everything that he's built there, I suppose.
Everything, right? If I leave right now, it's not like you can go get your business things in hand. You're not packing up, you're just walking out, right? Yeah, that would be hard to do for any of us. Of course, the NIV, they're saying that he's leaving a portion of his family who refused to come.
2 daughters.
Well, 2 daughters did go with him.
Doesn't he have 2 more, or don't
Well,
you know?
NIV thinks so. Thinks he had other family there too, daughters and maybe sons. So, let's see, hesitated. The men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. The Lord was merciful to them. What was the Lord's mercy?
The
He's-
angels had to take them. The
He-
angels had to drag them out, it seemed.
It's like they were befuddled. They couldn't leave where they knew they
Yeah.
had to leave, and so the angels just took them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, okay, now, okay, listen to Lot. "No, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here's a town near enough to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to him, "Very well. I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it." That is why the town was called Zor. Do you know what Zor means?
No.
Little place. Small. Little town.
But it makes you kind of wonder what was wrong with the mountains. I would want to go to the mountains instead of some little town, but.
Who knows?
Yeah.
This is where Sodom is where the top arrow is at. And the city he's talking about is just below it, Zor. So there's Sodom and Gomorrah and then Zor and then 2 other towns. Those 5 towns were the ones that were considered all together as being destroyed. And so the middle one is the one he's not destroying. So he spared Lot because Lot pleaded with the angels and just described it as a little place. We just go there and it's just a few little place there. Verse 23. By the time Lot reached Zor, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. That is all it says. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about the wife looking back, and it's one sentence, one short sentence. But so why was she turned to a pillar of salt? What was it about looking back?
In fact, we all do that.
God told her not to. Don't look back.
Disobedience. This is what you get for not.
It seems
paying
like a little
attention.
thing, doesn't it?
But it's a desire for the lifestyle that she had.
Obedience.
He said he was going to destroy all of that. So why are you looking back to what's going to be destroyed? She should have done what he
Just
said.
that one last look.
Yeah. And where'd the sulfur come from? Some scholars believe that it was an eruption, like an eruption of a volcano in that area. That's how he did it. But it definitely rained down. It could have been a violent earthquake that spewed up asphalt. All that kind of thing was possible. All those cities are gone, though. They were all gone. All those cities on the plain were destroyed. Even now, you can't, if you look at a current map of the Salton Sea and you look down there for where Sodom and those 5 cities were, that whole bottom portion of the Salton Sea is gone. So it's not there anymore. So the shape has changed even of the Salton Sea there. So it's very different now than what it was. Okay.
There's, excuse me, but it just seemed like our conversion, it's kind of warning us not to look back at how, what we were before, that we're to always look ahead, instead of looking back and desiring maybe.
Is it okay if you look back because you feel ashamed of it? Is that okay?
I think so. I think that sometimes we can help some other people come out of the same thing we went through just by looking. We have a story, and it's our story. It's our story. We don't have another story. We just got the book and we got our testimony. If something that we did in the past and we got freed from it, and we see somebody else with the same problem, we can talk from experience about how we got out of it by surrendering.
That's an excellent example. Do you also have to be cautious about looking back and ending up going back?
Oh, yeah, I'd never go over to my old friend's house, because I know they're still doing this stuff, you know?
Yeah, so it's a very treacherous path, isn't it? And I do think that when we're honest with other people about our experience and our conversion, we can sometimes help them to go forward, right? But we have to be careful in that looking back, that we don't fall back into whatever that mindset or lifestyle was that we exited. So you got to be awfully careful, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Awfully careful.
Online.
That's one of the reasons, Vern, that I believe that's best done in groups, like
Oh, yeah.
AA, because you can keep one another accountable for, wait a minute, you're looking back, you know, we've got to get you forward. And
But you have to change the places you go and the people you hang with,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, verse 27. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. So, can you imagine Abraham looking out over the Dead Sea, over toward that area, and just seeing the smoke and the woof?
What's happened?
So, Lot's deliverance was the main concern of Abraham's prayer, which God now answered. Verse 30. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. Okay, so Zoar is a pretty scary place because everything around it has been blown up with sulfur, right? So
Now he wants to go to the mountain.
now he wants to go to the mountain. He should have gone there in the first place. One day, the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father's old, and there is no man around here to give us children, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and then sleep with him and preserve our family line through our father." Those are good children, aren't they? That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So even though in this story Lot's role is kind of passive, he bore the basic responsibility for what happened, and he reaped the harvest of his move. His move to Sodom affected everybody in his family. All of his belongings and everybody in his family were affected by living in a place like that they would think this way. But was it uncommon for families to marry brother sister?
Yeah, it was common.
It wasn't very unusual because we don't have the same, numbers of people. Yeah,
Abraham did.
Abraham did. So Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. That was before the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. It was going to be a lush place to go. So afterwards, he learned his lesson, right? But we have this problem with the daughters. In Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan, set out toward the east. The 2 men parted company. Abraham lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. He knew that when he moved there, and he stayed away. Now when we found him, he's in the city, and you can see how tainted his own daughters are, that they think it's okay to sleep with their father, that it's okay for the father to get drunk. Right? It's the mess all the way around. There's nothing good about any of the 3 of them. Verse 34. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family line through our father." So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went in and slept with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ami. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. Moab means from my father. Ammon means son of my relative or kin. So the Ammonites and the Moabites come from these two sons, and they are the traditional enemies of the Israelites, have been for centuries. Remember when they went back into the land, God said, destroy the Ammonites and the Moabites? And they never did. They never could get it done. Mhm.
I don't know
Different
how,
things would have turned out if Lot had chosen another property and Abraham had been in that area. I never really thought about that before. I mean, Lot got to choose first.
But why did Lot move toward Sodom?
because it was lush and green.
Yeah.
Well, it was green up above, all along that whole side. He could have settled further north or in the middle. He didn't have to go down there where those 5 cities were. When he first went in, he was near Sodom, but not that near, he was still away from it. But then we see him at this time, he's actually in Sodom. So it's almost like he allowed that sin, he allowed that to happen. We could have stayed up further.
It seemed appealing to him.
Yeah, which is something for us to consider, right? Why we need to place ourselves away from sin and corruption and evil that's being done, not in the midst. But how do you change things if you don't get in the midst? How do you change the way things are going if you don't get in there? And
That may have been what he was trying to do.
seemed like he was just trying to make money off of the situation. That's what it seemed like. Doesn't sound like he was particularly religious or that he was trying to, help people to do what was right. But you could, that could be your missionary experience, right? We see missionaries that go into these other countries where things are really topsy-turvy and they try to help people to kind of set up some guardrails and some practices that are considered holy and righteous. But do they do well if they stay there all the time?
Sometimes
Most missionaries are told to come out every so many years for furlough. What is that for?
to have them
Refresh
refresh.
themselves,
Evaluate.
Get yourself oriented again to, because you could be
It becomes
sucked into that.
normal
Yeah,
when you're around it all the time.
you get sucked into that lifestyle and you don't recognize the how it's against what God's practices are.
Doesn't that seem to have a little familiar flavor to it?
In what way?
The way we are today?
Our culture is.
So how do we be in our culture and changing it, but not be of it? We're in this world, but we're not of this world.
Because I think it's important that we don't have to be living with and in, but as we live, we show what living like Christ is like, and other people can see that.
How do we keep from becoming a part of the bad things in our culture?
We have to stay in the Word of God.
Word of God, the Holy
Keep
Spirit.
us focused.
Keep
Develop
ourselves
some discipline.
disciplined, the encouragement of other like-minded Christians,
Church
people,
fellowship,
right?
bring us back to where we should be.
So our mind is learning, keeping ourselves in the Word. Our spirit, connecting with other people, encouraging one another. Our body, physically make us present. We need to be physically not in certain places and physically in certain places. We should not be in bars. That's not where we should be. So there are places we should be and places we should not be. Vern?
Well, for me, just because I got in trouble for something I did and had to surrender it to God yesterday, I'm gonna get in trouble today and need to surrender it to God today. Forgiveness, yesterday's forgiveness is yesterday's. It's a current thing. It's a today thing. The surrender is a today thing.
Absolutely. And the battle against sin is a today thing, every day, you know. But we need to don't be stupid. I mean, don't be stupid about it. Don't put yourself in a situation that you're not able to resist. You know, be smart, be savvy about where we are, who we're with, and what we're doing. We for sure want to reach out to people and we want to share the gospel with people, but we also need to protect our own sanity, our own perseverance in God. And it's good to have somebody challenge us every once in a while. It's good to have, but we got to be very careful. Otherwise, we'll be like Lot, sitting in the middle of Sodom and Gomorrah while the fire comes down, right?
You have to be mindful every day.
Be mindful, Vern?
Sometimes we have to set some boundaries. If we know we have, that somebody, it could be, well, people we have trouble with, we know we're not gonna change their mind. We have to set boundaries so that they don't come and do bad things to us or around us. And that, because some people you can't do it.
Some people you just have to let God do the work that needs to be done.
Right. You're
So
not the
you can
answer.
do your best to kind of coach or suggest, you know, whatever. But like you said, some people are just not willing to hear, and it's going to take time. God will work in them and bring them to a point where maybe they can hear. I don't think we should give up on people, but I do think it's okay to set boundaries. What did you want to offer something?
We just had a good example of it this past week with the ball players who put on their hat, Genesis 9:12. I mean, you know, they're trying to counter and show that the rainbow is a covenant with God and, you know, not, well, anyway, they were trying to be nice about it.
Mm-hmm.
And still, of course, they got it. But, you know, they were countering the culture.
But what a great way to do it. I was so pleased when I
Very
read that
respectful.
scripture and I looked it up and I thought that is cool. It's basically saying that rainbow may mean something to you, but to me the rainbow means this. And I thought what a really
What a
nice way to
testimony,
do that. Yeah. I thought that
And
was
it was
really-
very respectful, it wasn't nasty.
No.
Yeah.
It didn't even say anything bad about them putting the rainbow on. It just said what it is to them. You know, when you read the scripture that's there. I know.
And you know, last year, the Rangers won, the series, and they were the only ones who didn't do anything for Pride Month. And the same way this year, the Rangers are so far the only ones that have not jumped on the bandwagon, and we'll see what happens this year.
So isn't
I
it
mean,
just
Standing up.
isn't it really just so surprising how these stories of the Old Testament fit our lives today?
Yeah.
It's really amazing. People think when you're studying the Old Testament, it's the old stuff, the old ways, but it really is us today, isn't it? We really have to. These are things that we struggle with today. We struggle with people. When we struggle with people who are just obnoxious and difficult, we need to offer grace, right? Offer grace.
Man's nature has not changed.
We offer